Good day, students. This is just going to be a brief overview of the model that I've generated for Kaap. Now, this is a very extensive model. It's quite complete. However, there are still quite a few holes. And I just want to highlight some of the pitfalls if you are going to model your buildings in 3D. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in and kind of give you an overview of what the building looks like. So you can see I've actually gone to town. I've put a whole lot of information in this model. To generate a model like this without a library will take a lot of time because you're going to build a library. So these are quite difficult to get fully complete. So I thought I'll make this video just to kind of help you not to fall into some of these pitfalls. Okay. So the beauty of creating a very complete model in Revit is that you can actually really understand your model. So I'll talk you through my ideas as well, just so you have a better understanding. So I've created a basement. I wanted to create some sort of garden space around the building so you could live in some of these spaces. I'll get to the bedrooms now. I've made a little basement. I've made a flat area where I'll put water tanks and I'll do it all my drainage. I'll show you when I get to the floor plans. But in essence, this little cavity or this little basement that I've created it'll have water tanks, it'll have my sewer lift system. Okay, so my macerator, which I'll have to pump up the sewage because I'm in the basement, I'll have to pump it up to a high level to get it to the street. So get my sewage to the street, for example. Okay, I've built my hand railings. These are very difficult to do in Revit as well because Revit's trying to do maths to build these things, so they don't always look correct. So just be careful of that as well. Sometimes we're going to model some of the basements as well. I've got a Juliet balcony where we've got sliding doors. So these sliding doors are open up the living room space as you come into the room itself. I'm just going to take you more into the building. Okay, and I've got a little roof area, like a games area where you come on, and then a roof garden. So I'm trying to maximize the space that we have. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this into the building. Okay, just a fraction. So you can see downstairs we've got some bathrooms, we've got a shower, we've got 2 bedrooms, we've got a staircase and like a cupboard underneath the stairs, and then my stair core. What I am trying to do, and you can see my ceilings as well, what I am trying to do with my building is allow a lot of natural light to come down into the passages. I'll do a rendering later, so if you zoom into these spaces you can see, and I'll walk you through the room in a minute as well. Okay, so in a nutshell, you can see with my model, you can do quite a lot in Revit, but you do need a good library to make this work. So let's just cut into the basement. So we cut into the basement, for example. You see I've left 100 millimeters around my building so that they'll knock steel sheets into the ground to form like a permanent shuttering to retain the earth, because your neighbors you can't dig away. So you knock steel sheets in and then you start excavating and then you keep hammering those steel sheets in. It's a method that they use to create basements, and you can see that that's why I've left that gap, because that's where the steel sheets will go. I don't want to model those steel sheets, it's just going to take too much time. So for now I've just kind of left the gap, and then if I go and annotate and draft around it, then I'll know. So you can see you can get quite a good result in Revit. Okay, so I'm just going to go a bit higher to see the windows above. So let me just go to the side quickly. Okay, so you can see I've managed to get quite a good result, but you can't model everything. If you want to model everything, it's going to take a lot of time. Okay, all right, so let's just go to the ground floor, kind of show you how that works. I've got a little. Okay, so I've got a kitchen. I haven't modeled the kitchen either because I'll probably draft that in. I will spend a bit more time and add detail to this model. Okay, and you can see I've got my columns going up because this is brickwork on the side of the building. This is a concrete wall. So I'll use the columns to kind of support the roof slab above, and I'll show you more detail in that respect as well. Okay, so here's my little basement where my water tanks will be. I was thinking maybe these could become ponds where you can have water and planting. These concrete walls can become green walls, so you can actually go to town, but don't model that information. You much rather draft that information on a section. So I'm just going to the roof space a bit, so you can see here's my roof garden. So this could be a roof garden, my games room. I've added some detail to the facade, just again to let more light down into the stair, because the basements can get quite dark and dingy. So you just want to try and get as much light down as you can. Okay, so So this building is very complete in that respect. I'm just going to show you through the building, and you can see I've put upstand beams. So I've put upstand beams where these columns will connect to, just to add some support. So this is a typical workflow, something that you have to consider. You can see that Revit doesn't always connect things. You have to sometimes go and join things manually. Just as a word of warning, I've also used a floor type. So I've used a floor type, that's a fill. I've used that to use as my excavator. So for my site, you guys did this exercise. If you go to massing and site, so let me click on my topography. I've used my, just select my, yeah. So I've used my excavate mode. I've used these fills on which the slabs will sit. Remember, there's going to be other detail here. So I'm just going to quickly jump to that explain rayon. So I'm just going to open up rayon quickly. And to explain the detail, so I will probably draft a section through this where I'll draft the additional information. I won't waste my time modeling. Okay, I also want to show you around quickly. I'm going to show you the object that we've modeled so that you have a better idea. So in rayon, I'm going to go back home, sign with Google. Sorry, this should have been signed in. Okay, so the SANS document. Okay, so basically if we go to our, so all of these details you can kind of see, you're going to draft this information. You're going to go and draft this information. I'll make a separate video on how to draft. I do have some separate videos, but you can see I've tried to emulate some of this information. Okay, you follow the principles. You see we've got thresholds when we come into our building. We'll look at that now. But for our basements, you can see typically we're going to use these types. I'll probably use this type of arrangement for my basement. I've got a concrete wall, so I can just use, but that 100 mil is basically where the steel sheets will come down. So basically this is the type of detail that I'll probably use, minus the brickwork, because I've got a concrete wall going up. Okay, so just have a look at these, how they work, these details. So I'm not having brickwork on the exterior. I'm going to use some waterproofing and use a different method, but the principle's the same. The ground beam that you're using, the binding concrete layer. Okay, so binding means it's just a very weak mix of concrete. Okay, so that's why I've done this, but I won't spend a lot of time trying to model that information. It's useless because I'll just draft that information. Okay. Alright, so this is the 3D view. You've all got access to this model. I'll explain where this model is again, just so that you know. But in essence, this is the model that you can all go and explore. You can copy information from this model. And I think it's just a good model to understand how I've put this together. I have gone and put all the ground floor, all the floor plans together. I've left the sections on the elevation, so if you need to jump to them very quickly. But this is kind of what I've gone and done to set up the basement, the ground floor, so you can see how this information starts to communicate. There's still a lot of drafting we've got to do, so that how these walls close. I have done an example where I have drafted. I use a technique where I draft and close these details. So in Revit you can model some stuff, but not everything. The way the stairs work sometimes also depends on your view ranges, so it does get a bit complicated to get these views to look correct. Okay, that is the downside to Revit. It's just it takes a bit of work to kind of get the floor plans to look as good as a drafted floor plan. Okay, so there are some downsides, but you do have a very complete model where you can just simply cut up what you want to see. And I've left all the sections, how I've used the sections to kind of document this building. Okay, I've also done all the elevations. I've given you some, so the elevations, you can go and look at those and just kind of get a good idea of what they look like. Okay. In my section views, I've also I've kept some of the information, so like the brick coursing. So this whole building is brick coursed. So everything worked with the brick dimension because a lot of it is brick and concrete. I'm combining the two. I've got some floating stairs, for example. Okay, and this is what I mean with handrails. To put all the little connections on, it's so difficult because it's depending on mats. So sometimes we model those things in afterwards. Again, it takes a lot of time. Sometimes we just draft. So any of these views that we have now, we can use the annotation tools and we can simply draft over. We can add a whole bunch of details. I can add more bricks. I can now use all my drafting tools over this section to add a lot more detail. Okay, but Revit gives you enough information so you don't have to draft everything. But remember, what you can't model, you draft. You're using all the stuff in the drafting view, so all the line tools, using these components, so using all of these drafted components, these lots of these. Okay, so you've all been playing with these drafted items. Okay, sections, you can see I've given you a whole bunch of information here. Okay, some of these were set up to work along the wall, because if I go back to 3D view, I also want to go back to this 3D view because it shows the ground. Sometimes you want to step these walls. You would want to step these walls for certain reasons. Okay, so I set the topography to be semi-translucent to kind of access the information below the ground. Okay, so I just want to make a quick introduction video to help you all access this model, understand what you're seeing, and kind of talk through, if you're going to model this information, you can go to town as I've done here, and you can ask for assistance. I've gone and made a lot of custom little items as well. Okay, and you can use this model to grab things out. I've used curtain wall systems to create these vertical steel details. Again, for this wall, same deal. I've put a steel. Okay, so I've tried to use a whole lot of methods in here and techniques that you can go and explore, and if you need to ask questions, I can show you how I've made this information. Okay, but in a nutshell, your levels, all you got to understand is that your levels drive the whole model. So if you have to set up your levels. Once you've got your levels in place, then you're just simply adding floor slabs, ceilings, and a lot of these items will work. They work the same. They're just used for different things. So setting up your floor slabs, for example, setting these up, adding the different layers. Okay, please go through those on ClickUp. Please go through the different categories on how to use this in more detail. But a lot of these things work the same. Okay, a lot of these tools work the same, and that's why I've given you those separate videos. So walls work the same. So if you go to wall types, you'll find that they work the same as floors, just they're vertical, and you can see adding these elements, understanding exterior side and interior side, and adding these different components. Okay, so a lot of these things work the same. Sometimes you don't need to use a roof, you can just use a floor slab as a roof, but if you need to use roofs, you'll find if you go and edit them in these categories, a lot of these will all look the same. Okay, so ceilings, same deal, the way the ceilings work. Okay, alright, so you'll see a lot of the tools all look the same, they just behave slightly differently when you place them on the level. But what you have to understand, everything is driven by, this is all driven by the levels. So getting your levels set up correctly pretty much drives the whole project. Okay. So for those of you that are using Revit, I can give you some assistance, and I've got some other people to help us. And here you can see I've had to customize the stairs somewhat. Yes, the fill doesn't quite work the same, but we have to do a lot of drafting over this to kind of get a good result. Okay, so that's this model in a nutshell. I've used a bunch of levels, and you can see with levels, don't add a lot of unnecessary levels. So you see I haven't added a level for this basement level. I understand that this floor will be relative to something else, and you can keep seeing a ground floor minus ground floor. Okay, so don't add unnecessary levels because it gets a lot more difficult to manage. Just understand that each level you can customize what you're seeing. Okay, so for ground floor, for example, you'll see that basement level. You'll notice that a typical basement, you won't see all the information, but you have to use these plan regions. So you need to go to view, and you'll need to set up plan regions, which will allow you to view the plan in certain areas at a different height and cut plane. So that is just a little tricky thing to understand about Revit and how these nuances. Okay, so sometimes you got to use a series of plan regions to get the plans to look correct as well. But there's a lot of information in this model. I've given you a whole bunch of families that you can go and explore. Okay, I've added some dimensions, but this is not how we dimension. There's some separate videos that I'll give you to show you how you document your building, but I'll give that to you later this week as well. I've got the videos, I'll just have to build them in the right order. Okay, and I'll be using this model to create a series of tutorial videos as well. Okay, but in a nutshell, please go and explore this building. Okay, one last, I just want to open up Teams quickly and show you where you can get this information. Okay, so let me just save. I'm going to close this. I'm not going to save, so I'm going to close the model. No, I do not want to overwrite this model. Okay, so in Teams, if you go to OKE 200, you go to Support, and you go to BIM Library. Please note for ArchiCAD we've done the same, so just go to BIM Library. Let's give it a couple seconds to load. Sorry, it is a bit slow, so let me just try that again. BIM Library. Let's close that. Yeah, you're going to go to Revit. Click on Revit, and you're going to go to Projects, and you'll see that the Kaap project will be there. Okay, so it'll be this latest. Open this model. Those are just backups. Okay, so just please download this. Please do not overwrite this file. Please download it, make it your own, and use it as an example. Okay, so you can download this file, go through it, explore it. You can copy some of these items into your own models, but I think it's a good model to go and explore. Okay. In the same Revit, I've given you some other examples. There's a whole bunch of other example files. I think this Norcom one, not Norcom, that's a big shopping center. That's quite a large. The Cato Civils. If you go to Cato Civil, these office buildings, so this Cato Civil's office and this HQ building, I think are very good models as well to go and explore. Okay, they're also quite complete. All right. Thank you.